Hello and welcome to Türkiye Talks. As usual, today we are going to talk about recent international issues with Kadir Üstün from Washington and Ahmet Keser, Professor Ahmet Keser, joined us today to discuss especially the latest developments in the Middle East. Welcome both.
Hello.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Let's start with Turkey, Israel, and Palestinian triangle, if you wish. Last week, Turkey and Israel declared that they are going to exchange ambassadors, so they will upgrade the representation of their countries mutually. And on the other hand, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas visited Turkey and talked to President Erdogan. So there are some issues related to that. On the one hand, Turkey is trying to rebalance its relationship with Middle Eastern countries like Egypt, Israel, and in Gulf countries. But at the same time, especially in some circles, this rapprochement of Turkey is monitored very carefully. Palestinians, are they happy that Turkey is re-establishing its ties with Israel and upgrading its ties? Is it going to work for Palestinians, or are they upset about it? Let's start with that, if you wish, before then we can talk about Turkey-Israeli rapprochement. Ahmet Hocam, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that. Do you think Palestinians are happy, or are they concerned about Turkey's upgrading its relations with Israel after many years of problems and disagreements?
I think when we are talking about this issue, we have to separate the official Palestinians who has some information about the issue at the administrative level and the regular public. So I think Turkey and Palestine side needs to conduct a very good level of public diplomacy to inform the public, to clear all these concerns, doubts, and hesitations about the issue. Because I think for more than a decade, after the Mavi Marmara issue, the relations between Israel and Turkey has been frozen. So both countries withdraw their ambassadors from the countries. Yes, only the intel level official meetings sometimes took part, but there was not any de jure diplomatic relation between the countries. But we have experienced that this kind of relation does not provide any help for the solution of any kind of problems, even regarding the benefits of Palestine as well. Because all the problems are there, still current, and there is not any solution, and they are increasing day by day. So now I think the correct route is being constructed. Yes, it's slow, but it is in progress, and it should be in this way. I think diplomacy deserves a chance in all cases and should be given that chance before the conflictual relations. So this is a kind of not maybe a consensual relation, but at least a cooperative relation between Israel and Turkey is now being constructed. But at this level, I think the correct in-time information should be delivered to Palestine public as well, to clear all the doubts in their heads and to satisfy their concerns as well.
Kadir, what is your opinion about that? Do you think Palestinians should be worried about Turkey's upgrading its relations with Israel, or do you think it is going to work for Palestinians? Because Turkey is trying to have a balance, and when Turkey is communicating with Israel, what do you think about it? Is it better or worse for Palestinians?
Well, Turkey's actually efforts have already worked. Remember, during Ramadan, Turkey intervened to help negotiate, sort of lowering the tensions. Every year during the Nakba Day, there are tensions, and often we see scenes of violence. This year, we've seen some of it, but it was rather quickly kind of ended thanks to Turkey's efforts. So Turkey has always had a strong relationship with various Palestinian groups. Of course, the relationship with Hamas is a problem for Israel, but even that can be considered an asset because, when Egypt is usually the main player there, being able to speak to both Hamas and Israel in times of tension and violence. But Turkey has also influence, and it has in the past used that influence to good effect. And the relationship with the Palestinian Authority has always been also strong, and Turkey has supported them. Turkey has supported their efforts to establish a state. And since Mavi Marmara, Turkey paid a lot of, let's say, price for its strong stance on Palestine. So I don't think that Palestinian groups question Turkey's intentions, and it is to their benefit when Turkey can intervene and help negotiate various things. But the broader issue, of course, in Turkey-Israel relations, the economic ties never, were severed. They've been strong. They've been going even stronger. So people-to-people relations have been were disrupted initially, but it has grown stronger over the years. And we have been heading towards this kind of full normalization for a while now. We have seen many, statements, visits. Israeli president visited Turkey. President Erdogan made some strong statements. So this was works in the works for a long time, and it is related to, like you mentioned, Turkey's broader normalization with other regional countries in a post-COVID world. When everything is being disrupted on a daily basis, and you have supply chain issues, economic issues, Ukraine. So many regional problems are pressuring all the countries to, cooperate. So I think that's the broader picture, and we can go into specifics about, the Eastern Mediterranean gas issues, energy issues, Syria security cooperation, Azerbaijan issue, and the U.S. angle as well. U.S. policymakers always look at countries through the prism of Israel, whether they're friendly with Israel or not, and depending on that, Washington tends to judge you in a certain way. So it has Turkey and Israel's relations, being fully normalized and exchanging of ambassadors. They haven't named them yet, but they will soon probably. That will hopefully help Turkey's regional standing and relationships with countries like the Gulf and Egypt, among others, like you mentioned. So I don't think it's at the expense of Palestine. And when we look at history, past several decades, whenever there is tensions and heavy-handed policies by Israel against Palestinians, Turkey never stopped, criticizing Israel. I expect that to be the same in the future. But peace process have not really produced a state for the Palestinians. But still, there are many issues on the ground that Turkey can be helpful.
The beginning of my career, you mentioned the peace process. The beginning of my career as a journalist coincides with the Declaration of Principles, 1993, when Israelis and Palestinians signed this document. there was a hope for peace. As you mentioned, a series of negotiations were made, and also agreements had been signed by both sides. But when it came to 2000s, everything has collapsed. I think during that time between 1993 to 2000, Turkey was able to pursue a balanced policy because there was peace process. Both sides were talking to each other, and it was for many countries it was easier to find a middle way between the two sides. But after that, since the year 2000, we see a low intensity conflict, sometimes Israeli attacks to Palestinian territories. So, and also at the beginning, the two-state solution was on the table. But today, when we look at the situation between both sides, I don't know if we can still talk about two-state solution, although officially everybody is behind it. But when we look at the field, we see Palestinian territories are under occupation, the return of refugees, Israelis are not talking about that. Also, the status of Jerusalem is still in question. So when, Professor Ahmet, when we look at the situation from this point of view, first, do you see any possibility of a consensus between the two sides, and do you think this situation helps Turkey and other countries who tries to play a role in this conflict? Is it helping, or I mean, is it possible to do anything for countries like Turkey?
Well, Bora, the situation is exactly like what we have experienced in Syria or in Afghanistan for a while during the postmodern conflicts. It's very chaotic, very confusing, and at the first glance, we understand that it is difficult to solve such kind of problems. But we experience, for example, same kind of relations between Turkey and Russia regarding Syria, for example. But still, we can cooperate on some other issues. We have some conflicting interests regarding Syria, regarding our Turkey's approach and Russia's approach to regime, for example, or other terrorist organizations. But we still can cooperate regarding some other security issues, or we can play a mediator role in grain deal between Russia and Ukraine. So a similar situation can be experienced regarding Israel as well. But first of all, I think we have to understand the position of Turkey. So, and is there any change for the position of Turkey or not? I think foreign policy of Turkey regarding this region is similar to Libya case. So they are strictly based on the UN Security Council resolutions. Turkey respects to UN Security Council resolutions number 242, 338, and 1397. 242 is the UN Security Council resolution just after Six-Day War, which asks Israel to withdraw the troops which are invaded during the war. So, but till now, we have seen that except for Sinai Peninsula, Israel did not withdraw any location from West Syria, Gaza, or Golan Hills. The second is after the Yom Kippur War, which is 338, and it is about lasting peace and finishing the conflicts between both sides. UN calls Palestine to end the suicide bombings and terrorist acts, etc., and calls Israel to give an end to illegal invasion of the Palestine lands. But then it didn't stop after 1973, it went on. The last one is in 2002, in 13, first time that the UN Security Council recognized two-state solution. And somehow the process came till the time when the United States of America recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of the Israel. So it changed the situation again and deteriorated the situation, by the way. So after this constructure, we have to understand that in Eastern Mediterranean, the most important three countries, like a tripod, Turkey, Egypt, and Israel. So when we keep Egypt on one side between the relations between Israel and Turkey and Palestine, so both countries are there. When we look at the Middle East, again we see three countries, Turkey, Israel, and Iran. So in both cases, at the intersection, we have Turkey and Israel. So then we have to use negotiation, first of all. And if we can use any kind of win-win tactic during the negotiations, it may also provide beneficial interest for Palestine people, Palestinians as well, regarding winning their rights about the territory, lands, and all other human rights as well. So they should be living as they deserve, like human beings in their own state. So I think there is not any change for Turkey's position, but this is a confusing situation like the relations between Turkey and Russia. But we can, I think, go step by step through the progress, especially starting from the agreement points to the conflicting points, I think.
Kadir, what is your observation, especially in the States? Do you think this two-state solution is still on the table? And do you think Turkey's this new approach, I mean, upgrading its relationship with Israel will have an impact on Turkish-American relations?
Well, I don't think there is much sort of hope for a two-state solution, especially from an American perspective. Biden administration has made no major effort, announced no major plans, didn't, push Israel towards anything. And the last thing they were negotiating was when Biden travels to Israel, make sure that there are no new settlement announcements. So the expectations from the American perspective is very, very low. I think everybody recognizes, majority of Palestinians recognize that right now a realistic two-state solution is not really in the cards. Of course, the future of the Israeli regime domestically, democratic nature, that's going to be questioned more and more. It has already been questioned. And, no major power like the US's role in this process, it's a very, very long story. There are many books on this and we can't get into it. But Turkey, as Professor Keser mentioned, has supported the international position, has supported Palestinian groups, urged Israel to reduce violence, urged Israel to pull out of areas, but no country has been able to exert enough pressure on Israel to backtrack on occupation, and most countries continue to maintain relations. And Palestinian Authority is very dependent on also Israel's permission and how they handle that situation in the West Bank especially. And Hamas uprisings, let's say, or fighting against Israel have not produced much results. It has, the humanitarian situation is very difficult in Gaza. So I think from the Turkish perspective, engaging these actors, like the Russia case, like Professor Keser mentioned, compartmentalizing issues and then engaging them, trying to achieve more limited goals, that's kind of the perspective. And it doesn't mean that, when something happens and if the tensions go high and there's conflict, Turkey is not going to look the other way. I think it's going to be loud in its criticism, but again, we're going to see a replay. And let's also remember that Mavi Marmara happened in 2010. Two-state solution at that time was not really, was for a lot of people, it was already dead, right? It hadn't succeeded that process. So it's a different dynamic. It created a dynamic where Turkey and Turkish activists, let's say, because it wasn't exactly a state-sponsored event, but they were able to highlight the humanitarian suffering, especially in Gaza, in Palestinian territories, and 9 Turkish citizens gave their lives. I think, as I said, like engaging the actors in the region has been, especially in this post-COVID world, has become the policy of Turkey. You're seeing that with all the other actors in the region, all the countries in the region, and this actually has already created in the US, and that was your question. Washington has already, for instance, appreciated Turkey's role in Ukraine. They criticized Turkey heavily for its role in, Azerbaijan in Armenia conflict, but Turkey, quickly tried to make up, encourage both Armenia and Azerbaijan to make up, right? And it announced normalization talks with Armenia as well, rather quickly. So these efforts are being recognized in Washington. I think it's lowering the criticism coming from Washington. And frankly, the United States is no longer willing to spend a lot of effort and energy in the region, in these regions that Turkey is shouldering the burden. So in many ways, it's taking pressure off Washington on a number of issues. So I think it would elevate Turkey's position and perspective, how Turkey is seen in Washington. But of course, there's a lot of problems in the bilateral US-Turkey relations. So let's not, we can't really foresee some sort of new honeymoon anytime soon. I think that's not really going to happen soon. But the regional countries are trying to find ways to work with each other and compartmentalize issues. That's what we're seeing. And we can maybe talk about the recent announcements from within Turkey about Syria. Bora, what is your observations on that? Maybe we can start with you on that one.
Okay, sure. I mean, Turkey is trying to, re-establish most of the long-awaited issues. On the one hand, for Turkey, Syria is a security issue, and even this week, the president again underlined the fact that anytime Turkey can intervene in order to protect its borders and also to establish a safe haven for the Syrians who needs to go back to their country or who wants to go back to their country. This is one thing. The second, on diplomatic level, as you both said, everything is interrelated one way or another. So Turkey, on the one hand, while pursuing this grain deal, talking to Russians, talking to Ukrainians, but also Turkey has its own problems, especially in the south, the terrorist activities of the PKK and its affiliated organizations, YPG and others. So this is one thing. And while Turkey is doing that, while Turkey is trying to upgrade its relations with Israel and others, also this Syria diplomacy is related to Turkey-Russian relations. That's why I think after President Erdogan's visit to Sochi, this Syria came to agenda, and after that, especially Iranian sources blew an unconfirmed I'm not going to say it's news because it was just a claim that Turkey on top level may talk to Syrian leadership. So I think Turkey's policy has not changed vis-a-vis Syria, but it can be said that on the lower level, Turkish and Syrian officials may be engaging, but when it comes to top level meetings or communications, I don't think it is time now, and I don't think Turkey is planning to re-establish these ties anytime soon. So this is what I see. Maybe Ahmet Keser hocam, maybe you can elaborate more about the Syrian track.
Yeah, hocam, when we look at the Syrian track, I think we have to take the photograph of the conflicts first of all, because in Syria we have a different situation when we compare with Afghanistan or invasion of Iraq or the conflicts in the last decade. Because starting from Afghanistan, we experienced a kind of asymmetric warfare, which is defined as a small size armed groups can make an impact on larger ones, which is not expected from their size. But starting from Syria, it is, as Professor Kadir mentioned, there is a compartmental situation, layers. So in each layer, there are conflicts between the parties. For example, at the local level, we have Syrian opposition, terrorist organizations, and other national groups or sectarian groups in conflict with each other. And also, from that layer, they are in conflict with other layers, regional powers, second layer, and global powers on the third layer. So conflicts within and also interlayers and intralayers. So it's a kind of chaotic environment. That's why I name this kind of warfare as asymmetric warfare. So we have asymmetry and metric structure also there, and it's a kind of proxy conflict, and it's a kind of matryoshka conflicts in hybrid war. So conflict in another conflict, conflict in another conflict. So when we look at the Syrian case now, we have Turkey on the north, which is trying to secure her own borders and trying to protect the borders from the, any kind of attacks of terrorist organizations. On the other hand, we see United States of America trying to realize the Sevres Treaty again by the structure of a terrorist state there, by supporting PKK, PID, or by neutralizing or legalizing it by giving a name of SDG, Syrian Democratic Forces or a group. So on the other hand, we have Iran, which is trying to sustain her effect in the region and trying to construct a Shia crescent in the region. On the other hand, we have a Russia already, I think, got what they wanted as having bases at the Mediterranean for more than 50 years in Laskia and other regions. So good relations, they have good relations with regime forces. And now we have Turkey trying to improve the relations with the regime as well, but on the a little bit lower level. And of course, we may not expect to have high level visits very immediately. But I think in the near future, we can see some official visits at least deputy foreign minister level from each countries, followed by maybe foreign ministers, and the normalization of the situation between the regime and Turkey. And now a similar situation like Palestine will occur there as well. Then what about the opposition? What they will think about normalization of the relations between Turkey and regime? That question will arise there. So that's why before going into details or deep relations with the regime, I think these parties should be informed and satisfied that this improving the relations is not for the expense of the opposition groups. Instead, it is for finding a constitutional and legal solution also, which will protect their position and guarantee their future as well. So if we can look the window through this way, in the region, I think, then we may find some window of opportunities for a sustainable economic and military security and stability in the region, only in that case.
Yeah, what I understand from your interpretation, maybe we can say that before normalization, full normalization, Syrian opposition has to find a common ground with the regime, right? Because otherwise it will be also difficult for Turkey to pursue this relationship, because then Turkey may have problems with the Syrian opposition if without any agreement within Syrian groups. Isn't it right?
For sure, because I think we have to talk with the Syrian opposition, and we have to go to the negotiations with the regime with a final picture in hand. What the opposition wants in the constitution as of their rights. For example, as Turkey, we say that we support the unitary structure of Syria. What about the opposition? If a unitary structure of the Syria is protected and the Syrian army is just came to everywhere and controlled everywhere after the agreements, what will be the future of the opposition and how they will be sure about their lives, security, safety, and those kind of stuff? So it is really difficult to satisfy them in this case. So what kind of rights they will have will be a limited autonomy. Will they have any guarantee to keep their military or police units or armed forces in hand for their own security? So we have to, I think, know all this situation. We have to get an agreement, at least from the opposition side, and then we have to go when talking with regime in these kind of preparations in our suitcase, in that case.
Yeah, another question in Syria is the attitude of the United States. There was a statement from the United States Central Command. They said they launched an air strike against Iranian-supported groups in Syria. So on the one hand, we have Turkey, who is looking for its security, border security, and also hosting millions of refugees. Turkey is also looking for a way to resettle these people in their country. Russia, on the other hand, they are supporting the Assad regime, and they are also holding a space in Syria. And the United States is controlling east of the country with the help of YPG, which is a terrorist organization for Turkey. So under these circumstances, how will it possible for Turkey to find a common ground where there is no actually common ground between global powers and regional powers and the local groups? What would you say to that?
Shortly before Kadir Hocam, if I may, I think the last thing which United States of America will prefer is a full agreement between the regime and Turkey. Because if it finalizes all the conflicts, and if the unitary structure or the security in Syria is sustained or constructed, then it is the end of all the preparations of the United States regarding the PKK, PID, and SDG forces. So that's why US side will not support any kind of agreement between Turkey and Syria. So we'll be against all kind of those in this region. But such kind of an agreement, I think, may give an end, at least at the official level, for the United States efforts officially supporting PKK, PID in the region, because the regime forces may take place and they may change all these US activities in the region in that case. So this may prevent the US interventions also in Syria region. But I think this agreement and all the articles and all the frame should be drawn very carefully in this case.
Bora, I think Turkey's recent announcement that it can talk to the regime, Syrian regime, if there are relevant things, if there are goals that could be accomplished. So there's quite a few ifs there. Turkey is not rushing to engage the regime anytime soon, but by making this announcement, which is a big announcement, it's acknowledging, it's kind of making it official, the policy that has been in place since 2016. De facto, since 2016, Turkey intervened in 3 major areas. It's been holding those areas in northern Syria. Ever since, Turkey has not really talked about regime change in Syria. It has focused on its border security. It has focused on preventing further refugee inflows into Turkey. And then, it has created a political process with Iran and Russia, who could deliver things on the ground, because they're the ones who could stop attacks on Idlib, for instance, to prevent refugee inflows into Turkey. So Turkey has been focused on border security, and also PKK, PYD, YPG terror organizations, and it's been putting a lot of pressure on the US to drop its support, and PKK, when they felt that the US support was weakening, especially under Trump, several times he decided to pull out of Syria. They turned to the regime. They said we could cut a deal with the Assad regime, and that made it look like Turkey was running out of options. But this announcement gives the signal to the PKK. They had some harsh words about this past couple days for a reason. That's the reason, is that Turkey is saying, well, we can cut a deal with Assad regime if need be. So you're not going to be able to just say, okay, we are regime soldiers now, and we have autonomy in this region, and Turkey will simply watch it. Turkey has leverage because it controls multiple regions in northern Syria. Despite Iran and Iranian and Russian pressures, it hasn't pulled out. It continues to support the opposition. So these are leverages against Assad regime. Assad would have an interest in talking with, coordinating with Turkey. But of course, what it can deliver for Turkey is a tall order. It's a big thing. It's not the regime. I don't think they can really control PKK. They haven't been able to control it for a very long time. But they can take the option off the table, which is to cut a deal with Assad regime and just live happily ever after, right? So I think Turkey is playing this political diplomatic game, and ultimately, indirectly, Turkey has been talking to the Assad regime through, Russia and others during the constitution writing process. There has to be a political solution, right? One way or another, the opposition and the regime have to come to some sort of agreement. And it's not good. I think Turkey is basically expanding its cards. It's increasing the cards it's holding by stating that it is not so adamantly opposed to talking or engaging with the Assad regime, with all those ifs I mentioned at the beginning. There's no rush for it, but if need be, they will. And I think it has been reported before, Bora, you would know better, that intel agencies, when they needed to, they were talking to each other or engaging each other for accomplishing smaller goals on the ground. So it is it is a big deal. On the one hand, it's also simply a statement of the fact that has been for several years now, Turkey has not been pursuing regime change in Syria, but rather protecting its interests vis-a-vis refugees and terrorism and PKK, ultimately PKK's activities in northern Syria.
Well, I think we are coming to the end of our program. But before we close, Ahmet Hocam, I want to ask you one more thing because this week, I mean, everybody is watching Turkey and trying to guess what is Turkey going to do. And the president made a speech in Malazgirt this week, and he said, he repeated that, you know, Turkey can come anytime suddenly at night. But this time he added one more thing. He said, we can come to anywhere. What did he mean by that? What was the last, message for this? We can go to anywhere.
Yes, Bora, I think it was a very interesting point during the president's speech. Till now, we are used to these kind of sayings from president's speeches, but only towards northern Iraq operations or Syrian cases. But now, this came just after the Greek aircraft let's say, activities in the Aegean Sea. So I think this time we see that Greece is also on the target, at least at the objective of the speech as well. So I think there is a message for Greece also. For Greece, we can read this message. Please be careful, have good relations with Turkey. Don't increase the tensions in any region. We are always ready to protect the rights of Turkey. I think we can read in this way. So this is a kind of, this time, a trilateral, let's say, objective speech to all countries which sometimes Turkey have hostile activities from. We can read in this way.
So Turkey is trying to warn neighbors who try to escalate the situation, and Greece is definitely, absolutely they are escalating, especially in the Aegean Sea and also in and around Cyprus, because last week I saw a report which was a small one, but PKK members was making a small demonstration in southern Cyprus. So this is not a friendly message coming from Greece, I believe. Okay,
for sure.
So thank you very much, Ahmet Keser, Professor Ahmet Keser, for your comments and speech. Thank you very much, Kadir. Thank you. So hope to see you next time.
Thank you, Bora. Thank you, Professor Keser.
Thank you very much, Kadir Hocam, Bora. I appreciate both of you for this nice program. Hopefully, it is good and the audience enjoyed it, I think. Thank you very much.